Hello, everyone, and welcome to, well, my return. I don't even know what episode we're on anymore or anything like that because I gotta be honest, I've been gone for 2 weeks. It's one of the longest vacations I've ever taken in a row in the last 12 years, so I'm all discombobulated. But I am very excited to be back and being able to hobby today. One of the things I didn't get to do on my vacation was paint, so this is a return to form for me as well. I've been aching to do it for quite some time, so I'm very excited. And of course, to make it even better, we are painting the man, the myth, the legend, Ghost Rider today. I cannot wait to put some paint on this miniature, talk about him, look at all the things that's going on. It's great to be back, and I'm super excited to dive in. Has to be, honest fact, one of the characters I'm most looking forward to and have been anticipating quite a bit to get out there and get things working on. Probably next to She-Hulk. So, I don't have a She-Hulk, I've got a Ghost Rider. Let's get in and do some fun stuff with Senior Ghost Rider. Mr. Johnny Blaze himself. If we can get the camera to work. There we go. We're a little rusty. It's okay. Alright, so here's our Ghost Rider. I figured we would probably do something a little fun, a little different with this guy. So instead of doing the classic orange flames, which I've already done on a previous Ghost Rider miniature that I painted, we're going to dive in. I think we're going to do some blue flames. So we're going to do some blue Hellfire. Those out there who might know of a particular character from a different universe called Ghost Spider will recognize that as the Spirit of Vengeance from that universe, he has blue flames rather than the orange flames. So I thought that'd be fun to do on this miniature. And then we're going to go pretty classic. We're going to do some blue-black leathers. We're going to get the bike all nice and gritty and dark metallic. We're going to make him real sinister, but we're just going to change up the flames. So we're going to go on. And yes, for those asking, this is a 65 mil base. He's on a huge riding hog, so you know it's got to be pretty big. So let's just dive in. I'm going to start with some Huldra Blue. This is a fantastic color. It's going to help me lay down those blue blacks, and I'm just going to use this as kind of a little glaze or a wash. To just get some tonal color shift on the bottom. I've of course Zenith primed my miniature here like we typically do, and that'll help me get those shades and those highlights really quick. So I'm just going to take some Huldra Blue, I'm going to add some glaze medium and some water. I'm going to thin it out nice, turn it into kind of a glaze or a wash, and we're just going to stain the underside of all of our leathers here. And then what that's going to do is that's going to, like, all of our paint is going to be somewhat translucent to varying degrees. And you'll see Dallas did this on his Ghost Spider from previous streams. It's a really great way to fundamentally change kind of the overall color feel that you get from your paints. Especially when you're using like really thin, translucent colors like washes or glazing, because that color is still going to show through. But our top layer will obviously tint everything enough that we're not going to have this really sharp Huldra Blue color, which is kind of neat. We will definitely be using a bit for our flames as we come back in to get that sweet blue Hellfire going on. So if you guys have had a wonderful time since Gen Con, I know that the studio has been taking a lot of time to rest and relax and just enjoy the aftermath. We had a lot of fun. A lot of us have gone on vacation and taken some R&R, which has been also really nice. And we're diving back into all kinds of fun and amazing stuff now. And so I'm just really excited to share with you guys what's coming up. We got a lot of really cool stream stuff coming. We have so many cool characters to show off. It's going to be really awesome. We've got one heck of the end of 2020 coming. Regardless of everything else going on, it's going to be Marvel Crisis Protocol Fantastic. And we're repping my X-Men gear again because we've got that, of course, on the horizon. My Wolverine is sitting on my shelf that I painted over the Gen Con weekend. Super proud, super excited. Very happy to have him going on. So, and yeah, for those asking, the chain is one piece, and it's pretty sturdy, as plastic chains are wont to be. So it's got a little give, which means that it's not just going to snap if you drop it or you look at it wrong. It's got that hard plastic rigidity as well as that flexibility that plastic is well known for. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this guy is a two-piece miniature. He's not. He's got a whole Harley motorcycle or whatever. Dallas will correct me. It's not a Harley. What kind of bike was it based off of, Dallas? You know, that was your life. But of course, the motorcycle is a pretty awesome and detailed piece. So this is a lot more like, you know, a vehicle model as well as a character model, miniature, as well as the character miniature as well. So all right, I think we're pretty good on the Holger Blue. So we have that laid down. So we're good there. We're just going to let that dry. And then we're going to dive in and we'll get some metals on the bike. We want to go kind of quick today, just so we can get to the flames, which are going to be the biggest part of it. So, all right. So I'm going to switch over and I'm going to use black metal from Scale 75. I'm going to use this to lay down my colors on the bike, because I want just a nice gritty, dark metallic that's not going to detract from the flames. Because again, my focal point for this miniature is going to be all about the fire. And one of the things that I'm doing as well is you'll notice that I'm saving the flames. That's not only because they're going to be the most time-intensive part, because we're going to do a lot of layering and blending and stuff to get them to look really fiery and nice and eye-catching, but it's also because one of the cool things about when you're doing glow or flames or anything like that, it's best to save that stuff to last, because if you make little mistakes or you get like over paint on some of the areas, that'll actually just give you kind of some easy to do fake OSL, some object source lighting, because that glow, that spillover, will just look like it's natural light glow from everything. Let me bring down my lights. Get some more light on the subject. There we go. Head them up, because otherwise they're in my face and it gets kind of weird. So again, I'm just blocking out these colors really fast. Really easy. This is just a simple base coat of my metal. I didn't turn this into a wash or anything like that. I don't need it to for the metallics, because I'm gonna wash it with a dark kind of armor wash mix that's gonna be black and brown, and just to get that nice and gribbly. So this is pretty straightforward stuff. The biggest thing is it's still a little warm in Seattle right now, or in our area. So I'm just taking my time and making sure that every once in a while I'm rinsing my brush out so that the paint doesn't dry on the bristles, which affects your control and can give you streaks and all kinds of bad stuff. So it's always best after one or two applications, even if you're using the same color, take the time, jump back in, rinse out the brush. Yeah. Ghost Rider, well, being one of my favorite Marvel characters, is actually probably, for me, one of the most interesting terms in the way that I found him. I didn't read Ghost Rider comics originally. I actually discovered Ghost Rider through the video games and other mediums like that. Not even the animations, but it was like, I don't remember which one it was. One of the team up video games that they did. And he was one of the characters. Like, oh, I've seen him before. I never really knew much about him. Of course, you see artwork for Ghost Rider all the time. And when he was in an old classic Marvel game, Marvel Overpower, which was a card game that I loved, he was in that too. And that really got me interested in him. It wasn't so much the comics that dropped me in, but it was those instances where he wound up in other mediums. And how could you not just be super thrilled with a flaming skeleton riding a motorcycle? Like, that's badass. I don't care who you are. That is badass. So then, of course, that led me back to the comics, and like all good things, I really found a joy in kind of the storytelling. I love some of the really campy, like, it had that 1970s grindhouse feel to a lot of the stories. It was just over the top and ridiculous. It was fantastic. So Ghost Rider quickly became one of my favorites in the Marvel pantheon, just for, I thought, the fun nature of his stories, and you know, again, he's just such a great looking character design. You know exactly who and what he's about. What was I going to do? The gas tanks. But we will. That can darken it up later. Yeah, and of course there are several iterations of Ghost Rider, but this one specifically is the OG Johnny Blaze. But, I mean, you won't get any arguments from me. Like, the more Ghost Riders, the better. It's fine. The most recent, what was it, 2019, I think? The new Avengers run that started in 2018, but I think the Challenge of the Ghost Riders was one of the little arcs in that, where Robbie Reyes, who's kind of like the newest of the Ghost Rider mantles, has to race Blaze and for the Spirit of Vengeance title, and they of course introduced like all of the Ghost Riders ever. It was hilarious. That panel was great. There's just so many different Ghost Riders. And of course you have Dallas's favorite, which is Prehistoric Ghost Rider. Alright, so I think we got everything there on the bike. Back there and do a little touch-ups. But I'm not entirely sure if Giant Flaming Woolly Mammoth will fit on a base. Dallas disagrees, but we'll continue to argue about it, I'm sure, till the end of time. Alright. Let's do a little right here. Just making sure that I've hit all of the bits and bobs that I need to. And Ghost Rider is going to be releasing next month, along with Doctor Strange and Wong and Ant-Man and Wasp. So that's the current release. Okay, let's go back because I think that Huldra Blue is dried out really nice. So I'm going to be moving on to Abyssal Blue, and I'm going to use a little bit of black ink in this. And this is going to be my top layer. And so again, I just want to turn this into a nice wash. Or glaze. That will allow that Huldra Blue to show through on the bottom. So I can get that nice transition of color and the blending of the colors. So I'm using medium, glaze medium in this case, to make the paint stick better. You can thin out your paints with water, but the problem with water is that it'll cause paint to separate at some point, and it won't adhere very well. So if you use a medium, like a glaze medium, a mixing medium, really any kind of medium, they're designed to extend the paint. Show his card! No, I can't do that. Josh won't let me show his card just yet. But the panel of play was, I think, definitely covered. Oh, I need a little bit more color. The panel of play is actually really solid. If you read that, you get a pretty good sense of everything that's going on with him. I can talk in generalities about him and, you know, design goals and stuff. Obviously, I think the biggest thing for me was getting a character that felt really mobile, because he's obviously on some really wild, you know, he's on that really wild like motorcycle. He's on his flaming hog, and so that was one big thing, and that came down to, originally we weren't going to give him the motorcycle. Actually, I guess I could talk about that. We weren't entirely sure when we started Crisis Protocol and everything, and we were talking about designs. He was one of the very first characters I knew that we were gonna tackle, because obviously one of my favorites. I'm gonna play favorites a little bit, but more to that, you know, it's just he's such an iconic and interesting character, and he fit into some of the other stuff we were doing, like Doctor Strange and everything, and it was just a good point. But I wasn't entirely convinced that we could get him on the motorcycle and have it fit. And, you know, design-wise, we weren't really sure yet what materials we were using or anything like that, because this was like pre-dawn, early days. So originally, I had him not. I assumed he wasn't going to be on the motorcycle, so he wound up with a superpower, which is mentioned in the panel to play, which kind of was designed to showcase the idea that he summons his motorcycle, he hitches a ride on his big motorcycle, and of course the motorcycle goes away and he continues to fight on foot. To everyone's joy and excitement, though, once we started diving into looking at the miniature and the character design and we got a little further along into the sculpting process and everything, Dallas and the engineers, Marco and everything, like, I'm pretty sure we can, not only can we make a motorcycle that's going to be completely badass and really great, but we also can fit that on the 65mm base, because that was the other big question, is will it fit on the base? And so we did a little bit of testing and took a look at some stuff and played around with designs and everything, and it all worked. So we kept the superpower because it still added some amazing mobility to him and stuff, but he also, of course, sped up quite a bit because of his bigger base, and so we kind of got the best of both worlds. So he can haul. I think my favorite playtest game that I had with him was it was one of those, it was the cross or the diamond objectives where you have two closest to your deployment zone and you have two on the edges, and I wound up needing him to go from one side to the other, and it was like 2 moves and the superpower, and it was just like, whoop, now he's over here. And I was just like, yeah, and of course to do that he had to leave his friend behind, the other character that I was playing with, because I was kind of getting my butt kicked by Pagani. I think it was the one I was playing against. He'd like dazed and KO'd most of my team, and so I was just like, well, sorry friend, but Ghost Rider's got a place to be, and Ghost Rider just totally abandoned my other character, whose name I can't say because you don't know about him yet. I just laughed. Like the story in my head was just so good from that. So there. So hopefully, you know, it's a little wet, so it's a little shiny, but you can see how that Huldra blue is still showing through. But now we've got that nice black tint. So let that dry a little bit. And we'll move on to the bike. So we'll make up his move speed. I mean, I can tell you he moves medium normally. I don't think that's giving anything away, because obviously that speed stayed from when he wasn't on the bike, but we really wanted to showcase that super fast ability. Okay, so moving from there, now we need to create a little bit of a black wash. So I'm going to go to my trusty old, so this is a little different. We've used this before. This is Vallejo black glaze, and I really like the black glaze for doing kind of gritty, really dark washes, because it doesn't have grit in it, but it has kind of like this flaking, so it's a lot thicker and goopier than like an ink would be, and so it works really well. You just take that, mix it with a little bit of black or black ink, kind of create a wash that you want, and you can get some really nice effects out of it. And of course you always want to use glazed medium with it a little bit too, to thin it out so it'll stick. But the black glaze is one of the ways that I really like to do black leathers, and I'm probably going to do the boots and the gloves, which you notice I didn't touch with my riding leathers because I want these to have a little differentiation. So I'll just do these right over the Zenith Prime, and you can kind of see how you get this nice leather black going on. It still obviously shows the Zenith Prime underneath. Just kind of a nice, really nice effect that I like a lot for blacks. And you can do this over different colors of gray, or greens or whatever you want, and you can get some really nice different leather effects because it'll allow that top part to really shine through. And so I really like using like a blue gray, a green gray or a blue gray, and then putting this black glaze over top of it, and it'll give you some really fun color effects and some really great looking like two-step leathers. And if you go back to our catalog, I actually used this stuff on the Red Skull that I painted way back when, before the game even had released, and we were just starting our streams and stuff, and we were kind of showcasing everything off and talking about things, and it was such a different time. And everyone was still asking, when are the X-Men coming out? And we were like, we can't talk about future releases. And we still can't talk about future releases. So the X-Men coming out didn't change that. It's just now we can't talk about other things. A Defenders list that I find fun, probably. Like just squad related, depending on scenario or like the missions and the crises and stuff. You know, you can go with the heavy hitters. You can go with Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange and then kind of fill out from there. And that definitely gives you a very interesting consolidated squad. But I always liked Ghost Rider, Strange, Wong, Valkyrie, and then kind of like Season to Taste. And that gives you, it gives you the hitters, and then Strange kind of gives you that support element and control element. Ghost Rider gives you that mobile, like hard-hitting surgical precision. The thing with Ghost Rider, though, that you'll see once you see the card and as you start playing with him and stuff, is he is both an offensive powerhouse, but also kind of like this interesting support character. And that was intentional too. I wanted Ghost Rider to really evoke that Spirit of Vengeance idea, where his main goal is to punish evildoers, people who hurt others, who, commit sins, as it were, pay for your sins with the penance stare. And in order to do that, the thing that I thought was interesting was all of his abilities really punish enemy characters who target his teammates, but they don't do anything for Ghost Rider himself. So he puts your opponent in kind of an interesting position that I really like, where you can run him straight down into your opponent's throat, and they can deal with him or not as they choose. But if you keep him a bit more central and use him a bit more like a support piece, your opponent actually winds up in these situations where now they have to pick and choose. Like, do they want to attack a character like Wong, who they might be able to do a lot more damage to, or remove from the point, but fuel Ghost Rider's abilities and suffer, the Spirit of Vengeance wrath next? Or do they want to just focus on Ghost Rider and to the detriment of like being able to target other characters? And I liked the choice that makes, and the questions that you can ask as a player with that. And it felt very Ghost Rider to me, You've got this Spirit of Vengeance breathing down your neck. It's like, well, do you ignore the Spirit of Vengeance, who's going to punish you later, and delay kind of the plans that you might want to take otherwise? Or do you take the chance? So, soon enough. I don't think it'll ever be soon enough, Josh. It will never be soon enough. Alright, so now we got our bike nice and gritty. And we'll just let that wash dry, and we'll do a dry brush. I'm going to grab a little bit of black, though, because I want to, while everything's still wet, I'm just going to go back in. And on a couple of areas that I don't want to be metallic, like dark metallic, but I'd rather be a little bit more black. So this is just the basic Scale 75 black. Like on this gas tank, I really want this gas tank to be nice and dark. Now, focus back in. And so I'm just going to hit this while it's still a little wet. I'm just going to blend in some blacks. And just get that a little bit of color differentiation, a little bit darker. So we're sitting pretty good so far. I want to go back over the leathers because they're still a little blue, so I'm just going to hit them with another bit of black glaze. And so we're just going to grab stuff here. Now I'm just using some black ink mixed with some glaze, and I just want this to really wash into the crevices and help again tint those writing leathers a little bit darker than where we are right now. While still having those blues and stuff hit on the highs. So we're getting those nice highlights that we already have in there. Pulling those colors just a bit further down. Really quick, really simple. Really fast and easy. Boots as well while I've got this out. Just kind of tone them down just a little bit more. Alright. Oh. Alright. So there's where we're at so far with Ghost Rider. Nice and gritty. It's very shiny because that's what's going to happen when you do a lot of washes, and especially when you're using glazes. Those glazes are just going to be they're going to add shine, and that's why it's important to seal your miniatures using a matte varnish from a spray, or you can paint. You can get matte varnish that paints on, but that matte will take down a lot of that shine, and of course as it dries it'll also lose some of that shine. But it's always important to remember that you lose some of that detail as that stuff is wet and still really glossy. Okay, so with that, I think we're about ready to move on, and we'll just start diving into the flames. Get to the good stuff. So we're going to start with. So when you're doing the flames, you kind of want to start with your highs, and then work into your darks, because you're going to work inside to outside. And this is the thing that always drives me nuts about flame, because it breaks all of the rules that you know about miniatures, which is that typically if you're painting, anything else, you want your brightest colors to be here where the light would hit it, because if you think about it light-wise, and you want your darkest colors to be where the light wouldn't hit it as hard, which is in here. But flame and light works exactly different. So the place where it's hottest is where it's going to be brightest. And of course, flame is always hottest towards its center. So if we imagine the flame is here, then this is going to be our brightest part, and then we're going to work out, and this is going to be our darkest part. And maybe you're like, oh, I know this. This makes perfect sense already. I struggle with this all the time when I'm painting fire. I always want to do it the way that I know to do it, which is that the high points, like right here, should be the brightest part, and the lowest part should be the darkest part. And that's not at all how this works. So, when doing flames and stuff, it's typically best, I find, in my method, and what has worked out best for me, to just start with the high points. So, we're going to start with Miskatonic Gray, which is kind of a nice cool gray. It's got a little bit of blue in it. And we're just going to use this to start. And of course we'll go back and we'll hit up everything. And I'm just going to start layering this basically over the whole flame. I do want to be a little careful not to get a ton of this color specifically on things like the bike itself or the little wheel struts or anything like that, because the white is really that center heat color. So it's not going to be the color that would get reflected off of another surface. You think about fire, traditionally it's the orange, right? Or the red of the glow, the color of the glow as it cools, as the heat surface cools and it turns into the color on the spectrum, on the wavelength, that's the color that gets reflected off of things. So, think about that. And I will be a little bit messy here, even though I did that part because I want the flame to be coming off the wheel well. And maybe the whole wheel as well. So we'll play with that a little bit too. So this is just going to kind of like sub in for our base coat. Everything's going on. Fill that out. You know what? We're just going to go all in. So we're going to make the wheel itself kind of the heat point as well. Just kind of mix that stuff up. We'll come over here. And we'll hit his little... I mean, I think he should probably get his exhaust ports cleaned out because fire really shouldn't be shooting out of those like that. Yeah, OSL is definitely, like, object source lighting is definitely one of those things that's very artistic. It takes a lot of time. You know, it's very rewarding for projects that want it. But I'm going to be honest, a miniature on the tabletop, typically not where I'm going to spend my time doing that, because this boy wants to get on the tabletop and he wants to start wrecking fools. So, we're going to get a bit more paint. Finish this out. So, hit these flames. And I think we're just going to go a bit more intensive on the flames than the studio miniature or anything like that. So you could just paint the flames themselves and do the wheels and stuff normal. So like the flames are just coming off the wheels and maybe do a little bit of spillover. I, however, am just going to go whole hog on this glow and these flames, and we're just going to make them kind of like the whole wheel is on fire. And if you look at different art pieces for Ghost Rider, you'll see different artists approach the wheels differently. Sometimes the wheels are just pure fire, sometimes they're just on fire, sometimes they're a mixture. So we're just going to have fun. We're just going to mess around and explore and not worry too much about it. I do want to be kind of careful on the skull because I don't want to get this color necessarily all over the skull, because I will go back and mess with that later. But his flames do come down. And they go into his open shirt. He's rocking that open collar. So we're just going to get it all the way in there. Back up. Get that fire going on. I was really... he was definitely, like, Ghost Rider as a miniature was definitely one of the bigger challenges that we had in the studio. You know, and it caused Marco and the other engineers that worked on him a couple of restless days as they figured out where to cut and how to do certain points of the detail and stuff like that. You know, there's definitely design choices like we've talked about in terms of how you have to approach plastic miniature production and things like that. Like you might notice that this version of Ghost Rider is not one of the versions that has a lot of spikes on his leather jacket. And obviously there's a lot of different interpretations of Ghost Rider throughout the years. But those spikes cause a lot of issues when it comes to plastic production, so we kind of moved away from having spikes so that we didn't have to do separate shoulder pads or have each spike be separate or anything like that, which are some of the ways to approach that, and that has to do with how the miniature pulls and everything like that. Alright, so we got our whites on, so we're going to move to the next color, and that is going to be, so we're going to use this Adriatic blue. Which is not open, so I'm gonna open it. There we go. And we're going to thin this out a little bit with some glaze medium because I want it to blend pretty well. So when you're doing this, I find it's pretty nice and good to have your paint be a little thinner than you normally would, but not super thin. Swap like this. That's not the one we want though. We want this one. So all I'm going to do is I'm basically just going to start from the top and I'm going to pull it down. And I don't want to go all the way to the center. And I'm going to grab my second brush. I'm just going to kind of like start blending it in. This is kind of one of those things where you want to work a little quicker than normal so that your paint doesn't dry on you. You can always go back and hit it again and blend. And of course, I'm being a little heavy on the tops because again, that's where it's going to cool, but I'm going to continue to work in more color towards those tops as well. So I don't have to be perfect on it. I don't need like perfect solid coverage, but I also don't really want any of the white necessarily showing through at that spot. So this is when the stream stops being super exciting and just becomes relaxing meditation of watching paint get blended. And now here I can be a little less precious about getting some of the blue onto the bike, because those blues are what would reflect in OSL. So I get a bit more freedom to mess around, and you can kind of already see how that's coming together a little bit. So again, it's just, you've seen Dallas do, and I've done before. This is just really using two brushes to blend. So one brush you keep rather cool or clean and damp. You just use that to pull your paint, and then you get these nice little blends. So you can already see how we've got our blue fire going on. Blend in. But yeah, Ghost Rider, he's fun in the Defenders for sure. Definitely can benefit from Strange's ability, though he already hexes himself and has different attack types and things. So I don't think that, I mean, he's great in Defenders if that's how you want to play him. But he definitely works really well as kind of a X Factor in a lot of other affiliations. I really had fun with him in Avengers. He can make a really great Avenger. If you want a little bit of a different heavy hitter than like a Hulk, you can really fill that role well. He plays a bit to the whole enhancing and protecting the team due to a lot of his abilities and how those things work in terms of, like we talked about, forcing your opponent into making choices about if they really want to attack Ghost Rider and take him out first, or if they want to give him the chance to benefit from his abilities by attacking his teammates. So yeah, let's get that. That wheel is just going to be, it's just going to be fire. That's what we decided. And because it's going to be fire, we're going to wet blend a little bit. So now I'm just switching a little bit to like a mixture of wet blending and two brush blending, because I've decided that I want that wheel to be pretty much all on fire. And so I'm just kind of mixing the original Miskatonic Gray with this Adriatic Blue. This is when you just could be sloppy and kind of work those colors together until you get something that you want. You get an effect that you're really liking. But I want it to be a little modelly. Obviously, fire is kind of a living, breathing thing. And we're going to mess with it even further when we start going into darker colors. And we'll come back in here and pull some of this gray back into my blue. I mean, necessarily compare him to Hulk, primarily because in Avengers specifically, he fits a similar role. I'm not saying that the threats are the same. You can believe that if you want, but I'm not saying that. However, Ghost Rider hits really hard. I mean, if you read the panel of the play, you kind of probably have a pretty good understanding of just how badly Ghost Rider can mess up somebody's face with that penance stare, given that it starts at strength 5 and then goes to a cap of strength 10, and you lose power instead of gaining power for it. It's wild. So Ghost Rider will straight mess up your day. Kind of like a Hulk smash will also mess up your day from a very enraged Hulk. Oh, let's get over here. Get these in. Blending that out. But no, Ghost Rider is no Hulk. He's no Hulk. Who would be threat 10? I mean, I don't even know. Thanos with a couple of gems, I guess. Alright, let's go to the head. Now we do your flamey hair, Mr. Ghost Rider. Your sweet flame head. And so as I blend, the way that I like to do this with the brush is to pull my dark color towards the center of where the flame is. You could do it the opposite way. You could pull it up. But I just find that I like the effect better. And I seem to have better control and get better results if I do it this way. Where I go from about midline to outside, like that. And then I take my blend brush and I pull from midline to inside. Because what that does is it concentrates my color where it would be coolest and therefore the most vibrant in terms of fire. And it stretches the color back so that it's weakest where it should, where the lighter color should be showing. And so that's the technique I use. Is I'll hit those top edges mid up, and then I'll blend out down. And it works pretty well for me. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. let's go to our darker colors. I mean, we can fit Galactus on a base. The question is the size at which he would need to be on the base sufficient enough for people to be happy with him? I'm going to move on to this Caspian blue color now. So this is going to be even further out from the edge. Where do I want to go to Huldra blue? Oh, decisions. Huldra might be a little too dark. I don't like. All right, I'm switching gears. We're gonna take Huldra blue because I don't like how flat that Caspian blue wound up being. It's a little too gray. So I'm gonna go to Huldra blue, and I'm just gonna mix it with my Adriatic because I want to keep that vibrancy alive. And I think it'll play pretty well. So just a bunch of quick mixing. A moment that stands out for Doctor Strange. Couple moments. I think one of my favorites was we were doing a playtest game, and it was probably the first or second time we had. Whoop, I'm totally off camera as I ponder. Probably the first or second time we had Strange on the table, and I was playing him in Avengers, and I was fighting. I think I was playing against Black Order and Thanos, and it was like the murdery Black Order version where they just want to kill you. They don't want to be friends. They want to ruin your life and day with sharp, pointy sticks and laser beams and such. And man, hoary hosts of Hogarth, man, that was amazing. I had Captain America, like vibranium shielding and hoary host defenses and all this stuff, and you can do it all day, and it was so much fun to watch as like Strange just kind of took the Avengers and pumped up their survivability and what they wanted to do to this next level. And so it kind of became this fight of, I gotta get rid of Doctor Strange, but I can't because Captain America keeps getting in the way, and Strange kept making sure Captain America stayed alive, and all this stuff, and it was fun. Like you could see the story unfold on the tabletop, and I really got a sense that we were on that right track for Strange because he felt just so magic-y. Like he's just casting spells left and right. And you guys haven't seen the tactic cards yet for him, but a couple of the tactic cards came into play there too. And it was just fun. It was really fun. Dallas, you would say Huldra blue is a good choice for anything because you love this color. Like, you just love Huldra blue. We're going to go back in, we're going to do a little wet blending. And this is when you can start spending like a couple of hours just working on flame and having fun with it, because you start wet blending in the colors and stuff, and it starts to get really wild. But yeah, I replaced an update affiliation. The rule of 6 works. I bet you Josh could do that. Probably. If he's around. Josh controls the website. He can do anything. He could do anything, for sure. So if putting them on the rules section would be helpful for the chat. I bet Josh could probably make that happen. And if we can't do it right now, we'll figure out how to do it later. Ooh, my brush. Again, it's just more of the same blending technique, and you just do this over and over again until you're at a result that you're happy with and everything's going well, and then you take it to the next level. Kind of just looking for like the tips of those flames and where it would really be cooled down, so you get kind of that smoky contrail thing going on, and then keep the inside nice and hot, or in this case cool, because we're doing blue rather than traditional flame. So that's totally going to mess up all the language, because we're kind of just going from cool to cool. Tips of those flames right there. Tips of those flames. Pull that in. That. Let me get around this collar here a little bit. Blue Fire! So really fun. I just really like painting this guy, not only because he's super cool, but just getting to work on the flames and kind of mess around with this fire effect and stuff is just really fun. You kind of get to just stick with it. It becomes really rewarding, and really get to do those punchy colors. You didn't see Dallas's Gen Con class on punchy colors. Those are all up on YouTube, so if you missed anything we did on Gen Con, it's up now, so you can check out Will Pagani and my couple of things we did on development. We talked really in depth about the decisions we make and how we make the games and all of that stuff. Dallas did a whole bunch of really great painting classes. Talked about skin, painting different flesh tones, especially like some of the more fantastical Marvel style flesh tones, including a She-Hulk. We painted a Wolverine, which was really fun and exciting to do. Talked about Path of the Worthy. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff. It was super fun, super great. Too much water. Go back now, and I just want to pick out that white again. I'm just going to work some of that light color back in. Check our time. We have 7 minutes left. So we did pretty good for our first hour. I'll probably crank this guy. Now we're just kind of making that uneven kind of heat zone. You probably want to get some so I'm just kind of using a little bit of like an irregular stippling on the center to where the heat is. And then using my other brush to kind of like blend that out. Into where the hot zones are supposed to be. Just to kind of get back some of that fire sense. And we do need to probably take that gray up a touch or two into the white, although we do want it to be kind of ethereal and ephemeral and spooky. We want spooky flames. One that I'm most proud of, like in terms of, man, it's pretty tough, because like every single character do I have one that I'm most proud of. Like there's a lot of steps. Like each character kind of becomes more than the last one before, and I think that's the really cool thing. We talked about. I mean, we've talked about it before on the streams and stuff in terms of painting and all of that, like everything you do in life really should be, ideally it's a progression. It's taking what you did before, applying the lessons that you learned, and then going beyond that. So it's tough. Like the second that we do something and we're like, oh my gosh, wasn't this the most amazing thing ever? We kind of look at it and we go, okay, well, how do we make the next thing even better? Like, what did we learn from this that we can take and go to that next step? Like, where do we improve? How do we blow people's minds all over again? How do we blow our own minds all over again? So, like, it's hard because every single one of them like has its moment of being amazing, and then every single one of them also has that moment of like no longer being the best thing you ever did, because ideally you progress and you improve every time. And if you ever reach that point where you're not progressing and you're just kind of static, I don't know, to me there's not a lot of joy in treading water. I was so proud of kind of the core set characters, and when we started playing them and testing them, and people were like, yeah, these really feel like the characters that I expect that you're saying that they are. And that was such a proud moment. And then of course it's always exciting to hear people, like whenever somebody says out loud or talks about a rule, or like I can do this all day with Captain America. Every time somebody laughs about that or gets really excited because they just think it's cool, like to me that's the moment where I go, okay, yeah, that was really awesome. I'm really proud of that, because end of the day, what I want more than anything, and I think the entire studio wants more than anything, is we want to bring fun and excitement and joy into people's lives. Whether it's the experience of building a miniature and painting it and being proud of it on your shelf because it's yours and a representation of an increase in skill and everything, or it's your favorite character and you just love everything about that character and it brings it together. Those are the things that really just make me want to go back and work harder and start over again and do things better the next time. And the times when you don't succeed at that for whatever reason, it stings, and the best you can do is take the lesson and try to figure out like where you went wrong or how you didn't meet expectations, and then try to figure out how to do that the next time. Take those lessons. Not everything's perfect, and you'll always be able to look back, ideally, and be like, well, I could have done that better. I could have done this different. It doesn't take away from the accomplishment of what you did. But it's like that's the joy of it. That's the excitement, is that every time we do something new, we have that opportunity to look at it and be like, yeah, this is great. This is great. I'm really happy with where Strange wound up. I think that he was one of those challenges when I was designing him where I knew I wanted this kind of centerpiece character that was really powerful but wasn't an offensive, like, punch you in the face kind of character. And seeing that concept and that design come together and to have it work really well in testing, and to show them off at Gen Con and see people really get the vibes that we were going for, and that everything that Pagani and I did to make that design come through, and the testers worked hard to make sure that it was balanced and all that. Like, to see that all come through is really exciting, and it's a really proud moment, for sure, because it was one of those like personal challenges. And I think it's the right move for the character and everything. And it's going to make Strange feel like Strange. And again, that's in the end of the day, right? That's the thing that I care about the most, is that you're going to have fun. And if, for whatever reason, the only time I feel like we failed is if somebody goes in and they're like, oh, this is going to be a blast, and then they don't have fun. There's a problem. We got to fix it. And we can't make everybody, like, you can't be perfect. We talked about this too in the design things. You can't please everyone all the time. So you have to have kind of like a disseminating manner and a way to figure out what works, what doesn't. What voices do you listen to? And a lot of times that's staying true to yourself. And, I think everybody, if they're truly honest with themselves, has a pretty good radar for, did you succeed? Did you not? Did you do what you could? Did you do your best? How do you improve next time? You know, the best thing we ever did was the core set. And then the best thing we ever did was the Wakanda stuff. And then the best thing we ever did was the Asgardian stuff. And so on and so forth until, you know, Marco was working on the man himself, Thanos. And we looked at Thanos and we're like, well, this is the best thing we've ever done. And I just, like, it blows everything else away. Like, what are we doing? And then it went, okay, well, where are we going to go next? And so, you know, I think most of all what I'm proud of is just the ability to continue to progress with unlimited human potential. And the fact that, you know, that's what makes us exciting and joyful. But there are moments, and there are characters. Like, I'm really excited for everyone to get their hands on the X-Men. I think, you know, hopefully we'll have moments where everyone will get to freak out and they'll laugh at rule names and they'll get really excited and they'll be kids again. You know, because that's what we do. That's why we do this stuff. Because we want to experience that fun and that joy and everything else that's going on. So, there you go. Do Ant-Man and Wasp? Well, I mean, obviously Ant-Man and Wasp. There's one clear team that they belong to, and everyone can guess it. It's the Avengers. And much like everyone else, they'll get added to the affiliation closer to their release. So, you know, that was another big design decision that we made at the start, was to make sure that affiliations and characters were really flexible, and that's why we rely a lot on you know, online rules and updates and things like that, because it allows us to make sure that we're not going to not see Ant-Man and the Wasp on the Avengers because they weren't on that card initially, or that someday when some other team happens, like, you know, the Time Heist affiliation or something, I don't know. Don't hold me to that. I'm not actually... It's an example, people. That Ant-Man and Wasp can be on it. You know, and they won't be excluded because at the time we didn't even know we were thinking about doing that. And that was another big thing, was keeping things flexible and making sure that everything fit and made sense. Alright, and I think with that, I am like 3 minutes over, so here's where we're going to end on our Blue Fire Ghost Rider. Overall, he is really close to done, I would say. I'm going to play with that fire a little bit more probably next week. We'll go back through and we'll add some more super spot highlights. We'll get some white in there to make it really glow. We'll work on the skull. We'll do a glowy chain because I love the glowy chains on mine. And we'll dry brush the bike and kick up some of the colors. And then, of course, we have to do his skull lamp, his little headlight. Got to have the headlight. So that's where we are. I'll show you just by comparison. This is my other Ghost Rider that I did in traditional colors. So we're kind of doing a similar take, but we're just changing up some of the colors, using a lot more blues. So here's our new Ghost Rider. It's looking pretty dope. I'm really liking that blue. I think it's coming through really nice. So we'll do something similar on the chain, but with the blue, and we'll kick everything else up, and then we'll call it good. So be sure to join me next week, guys, as we dive back in and we continue our Ghost Rider. Also, make sure to check out Dallas's stream this Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific. As he will also be doing his own take on Ghost Rider. I'm excited to see what he does. Maybe we'll get Purple Flame, maybe Green Flame, who knows. Maybe he'll go traditional because, you know, he's a traditional kind of guy. But regardless, be sure to check out that, hang out with us some more. Let's be talking about all the good stuff. Be sure to watch social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We'll also be announcing our staff picks from last month's competition, painting challenge, hashtag painting protocol, where we asked you guys to paint the Black Order. Be sure to enter into the Instagram contest this time around, as we're going to be looking for metallics, and just looking for some shiny, super awesome metallics, whatever people have done. We love seeing all the stuff that you guys submit on the Instagram page. It's so awesome to watch that thing grow, and it's always a joy for us to be able to pick out some of our favorites and just highlight things in the community that we think are awesome. And there's so many awesome things, we can't pick them all, but we like to pick a few of them. So watch for that as well next week. We haven't forgot. Gen Con kind of put us a little off track, but we're going to get right back to it. Otherwise, stay safe, enjoy, and we will see you guys on the next one. Until then, keep your motorcycles on fire, boys and girls. We'll talk to you later. Goodbye.